Good evening, my name is Jonas and I am 35 years old. I am originally from Sao Paulo and I am the grandson of a northeastern man. I would like to share a supernatural experience that my grandfather, Juvenal, and two friends had while watching over a construction site in Sao Paulo's capital city. This story took place in the 1970s, and even though my grandfather is now over 80 years old, he still tells the same story without any changes. This makes me believe that they really witnessed something out of the ordinary. In 1972, my grandfather was working on the construction of a condominium in the southern zone of Sao Paulo. Although his and his two friends' job was only to watch over the construction site, it was important due to the expensive equipment and machinery used in the construction. The site was located on the margins of a highway in the southern zone of Sao Paulo, and there was a large area of forest behind it. Before starting the construction of the buildings, the team removed the trees and leveled the ground. When night fell, the workers went home and my grandfather, Juvenal, and his two friends arrived to watch over the site and the equipment. Since there was nothing built yet, they were in an open field without any fences or walls. The only structure present was a small wooden shed. There was a night when one of my grandfather's friends, Julio, said he had a stomach ache and needed to go to the sea to relieve himself because there was no toilet at the construction site. They had to rely on nature. After a few minutes, Julio came back running and scared. My grandfather, Juvenal, and Daniel thought he might have seen a dangerous animal because it was still common for some animals to appear back then. However, Julio said he had seen a strange man looking at him, but when he asked who he was, the man jumped and disappeared instantly. My grandfather, Juvenal, took his gun that the construction team left with them and, together with Daniel, took flashlights and went to check who this man was. Until then, they believed it could be someone trying to steal the machinery and equipment. They searched the entire site, but found no trace of the man Julio had seen. That night, they stayed on high alert until dawn when the team started arriving for work. My grandfather reported the events of the night to the supervisor, but since only Julio had seen the strange man, they were not sure if it was a real person. Due to the expensive equipment at the construction site, the supervisor took measures to protect them. He managed to get 2 more guns for his employees to work armed during the night. The construction proceeded without problems and was about to complete the land leveling. One night, my grandfather, who was one of the workers, was near a tree enjoying the starry sky while smoking a cigarette. At that time, it was still possible to see the night sky without light pollution. That's when my grandfather saw a tall man standing on the other side of the highway, in front of the construction site. The man wore a hat that hid his face, even when car headlights passed by him. My grandfather called the other 2 workers, and the 3 of them watched the strange individual, not knowing what he wanted or what could happen. The man stood still for a few minutes, without moving, until he entered the woods behind him, on the other side of the highway. When this happened, my grandfather and the other 2 workers grabbed their guns and prepared, as they thought that man could be interested in some of the construction equipment. However, he did not return that night, and so it was until dawn. My grandfather informed the construction site supervisor about the strange man he had seen, and the supervisor decided to call the authorities to send a patrol car to patrol the area. The patrol car started passing by the construction site every night for 2 weeks, but the man did not appear again. However, while they were building the foundations of the building, my grandfather saw the man running in the back of the construction site. He called his friends, and together they went after him, but the man ran so fast that he disappeared among the trees. When they illuminated the area, they heard noises coming from the top of the trees and saw the man jumping from one tree to another. It was impossible for someone, but they still shot without hitting the man who had disappeared. After the failure, they were afraid and, with the protection booth already installed on the highway, decided to stay there and not perform further patrols, especially in the woods at the back of the condominium. The next day, my grandfather told the construction site supervisor about what had happened. As they talked, the construction site coordinator overheard the story and commented that shooting would not help, as the man they saw was not of this world. The construction site master believed that it was an entity that fed on offerings placed in the woods and in the small stream at the back of the site where they were building the condominium. The construction site supervisor didn't believe in supernatural things and thought it might be a thief trying to steal equipment. He warned my grandfather and the other 2 workers to be more vigilant and watch the machines. After the conversation, they went home but began to imagine what they would do if they encountered the strange man wandering around the site again. The next night, when they arrived for work, Master Adeo was waiting for them to talk about the recent events. Master Adeo was a very wise man and had knowledge of things that most people did not understand. He explained to my grandfather, Daniel, and Julio that the entity had no bad intentions and was only looking for the offerings that had stopped being made at the site. He advised that if it appeared again, they should ignore it and not be afraid. Master Adeo's words were a guide for my grandfather and his friends. Gradually, everyone left, except for 3 who stayed to watch the site and pray that the thing would not appear again. For several nights, everything was quiet, and there were no strange events. On Friday, everything changed. Just before midnight, they heard a noise from the forest and went to investigate with their guns and flashlights, but they didn't see anyone. As they were returning, something very fast passed them, and they only saw a shadow. The thing stopped further ahead and stared at them. My grandfather didn't know what to do, but Daniel pointed the gun and shot in the direction of the thing. The shot hit, but the thing turned into smoke and disappeared right in front of everyone. Seconds later, a strange presence materialized and began emitting sinister noises that made the 3 workers tremble with fear. They ran to the guardhouse and locked themselves in, as the night was long and frightening. According to my grandfather, the presence generated a terrifying wind and raised a dust cloud that covered the entire construction site. In addition, branches and debris started falling. There was nothing they could do, so they prayed and asked God for protection. Gradually, the presence calmed down until it disappeared completely. The next day, when the staff arrived for work, my grandfather told the construction site manager, Adeo, about the night of terror. Despite scolding the workers for firing a gun, he advised them to make an offering to the presence to leave them alone. The following night, the 3 followed Adeo's advice and went to the construction site, where the manager also arrived. The 4 entered the forest at the back of the condominium and took some items as a sort of offering. Meanwhile, the wind shook the trees, but the manager assured them that there was no reason to fear, as the presence would not harm them. After that, the presence never appeared at the site again, and it remained that way until the end of the construction. It is not known for sure what that presence was, whether it was a demon, an entity, or a lost soul. However, I am sure that it was not of this world.